The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
I hope the AC is working today. We're supposed to tickle 90. Woo! Okay. Glad it's working in my house. Hope it's working in your house. Next hour, as we always do on Wednesday, Orioles preview. And we're going to be joined by Cody Ashe, who is the offensive strategy coach for the Orioles. Forget the days where you just had a pitching coach and a first base coach and a third base coach. Teams are loaded with coaches now, and he is the offensive strategy coach. And the question I want to ask him is, how much has the strategy of baseball changed in that the leading home run hitter in baseball is your leadoff hitter? It's just Gunnar Henderson has 16 home runs. He's the leadoff hitter for the Orioles, but the analysis of how you put together an offense has changed dramatically. It used to be you'd fire the manager if your leading home run hitter was your leadoff guy. Yeah, you got to put him in the cleanup spot. Come on, have runners on base. No, everything has changed, so we'll find out more about how the strategy of baseball works coming up at 10:30 with Orioles preview. Also, Bobby Wagner was on the Kay Adams podcast, Up and Adams, and had some interesting things to say, and playing with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, which is always helpful, talking about how maybe Seattle overlooked him, and he's getting a fresh start. He's in his mid-30s, but did lead the league in tackles last year. So he may have something left, and he may be something that could really help this defense this year. And he and Dan Quinn go back quite a ways, as Quinn was his defensive coordinator when he first started in Seattle. And maybe they can make some magic happen here again. Who knows? Get to the NBA playoffs, both the review and preview. The review of last night with, let's face it, the Indiana Pacers choked. They had their opportunity in Boston, couldn't get it done. And tonight we get the Western Conference Finals started. And what about the metamorphosis of Kyrie Irving? Kyrie Irving won a championship with LeBron James in 2016, but he won it as Robin to Batman, and he wasn't happy playing Robin. He wanted to be Batman. Well, he went to Boston. That didn't work out. He went to Brooklyn. That didn't work out. And now he seems to be okay playing Robin to Luka Doncic and may be poised to get to the finals. We'll see. Got a tough task ahead of him against Minnesota, who a lot of people like to win it all. Minnesota, I think, has been the story of the postseason, that they were overlooked for how good they were defensively. They were the number one defensive team in the league. And what they did to Denver to shut them down, hold them under 100 points. I think 3 of the 4 games that they won held them under 100 points. 70 in Game 6. And that gets going tonight in Minnesota. All right, let's start with what happened last night in Boston. Celtics and Pacers. It was the Celtics jumping out to a big lead. It was like 12-0. Then the Pacers started to hit some threes, and it settled down into a very close game. It was tied at the half, and the Pacers had a chance to put the game away. They were up 3 with 27 seconds left. Tyrese Halliburton then dribbled the ball off his foot, but Indiana got the ball back with a chance to seal the win with 10 seconds to go, but they had to get the ball in bounds. 8.1 seconds left. Bad inbounds pass from Andrew Nembhard to Pascal Siakam. Sailed out of bounds. Boston got another chance. Jaylen Brown hit a three-pointer at the corner, went to overtime, and the Celtics won the game by 5, 133-128. It's a double whammy in that they're down 0-1, but also the psychological part of having the game in hand, it seemed, and they let it get away with mistake after mistake after mistake. And in the game, they had 22 turnovers. That led to 32 points. It's the second most turnovers that they had all season. And the Pacers also became the first team since the 1997-98 season to lose a playoff game despite inbounding the ball up 3 in the final 10 seconds. Like, nobody has really choked anything away like this in over 25 years. This was Tim Legler on the set at ESPN last night analyzing what went wrong and looking now at the Pacers, who are not only down 0-1, but seem to be maybe mentally broken.
It's difficult. And look, they're a tough team. They're a resilient team. But here's the thing. It's tough enough to get 4 wins in any postseason. Against this team in particular, really difficult. You had one in your hands. All you have to do is inbound the basketball, make free throws, you win the game. It's really that simple. Their lack of execution in that spot. And look, to give Jaylen Brown all the credit in the world, it's an incredibly difficult three to tie it up. But here's the play I'm talking about. You have guys breaking to the basketball that aren't taking a direct line toward the inbounder. Pascal Siakam, he breaks from half court straight down the middle of the floor. The ball's delivered late. Halliburton, when he broke to the corner, he's not coming toward the ball and forcing Boston to either grab you or you can get easier separation that way, and it leads to this. Jaylen Brown's a great execution. He said he was going to be open before the ball was inbounded. He caught the ball. That's an incredibly difficult shot under pressure, forces overtime, and then in overtime, Jason Tatum really helped close the deal. 3-point play and a big three to help seal the deal. But you've been talking about the turnovers a lot, 22 of them. Yeah. And they led to 32 points. That's the biggest thing. Boston capitalized on every one of those big mistakes, and a number of those unforced. The turnover and the inbounds, but then you saw Halliburton just dribble the ball really without a lot of pressure on him at half court. Another one, and then Siakam gets the ball ripped out of his hands on a drive to the rim. So the turnovers are something that haunted them. It's tough, though, when you got to get 4, man, and you had one to kick off this series, and you basically let it through your hands.
So you're Rick Carlisle now, and you know you had this game. At least you feel like you had it.
Right.
What do you say to your squad to say, you know what, we let them have it, but we're going to get the next one because why?
Yeah, here's what he's going to say to his team, and it was the same exact thing in the Knicks series that I kept saying repeatedly throughout the series. We are playing these games to our liking in terms of pace and style. This was no different. The Indiana Pacers can score on any team. They've done it all season long. They've had 10 games in the postseason, now 11, which they've gotten to 115 points. They're going to score. Question is ultimately, are they going to be able to stop Boston? And I thought Boston, when they played to their strengths in terms of their forwards getting downhill, getting to the lane, Jrue Holiday muscling guys, when they were playing that with that intent to get to the rim, they were very difficult for Indiana to guard. But if I'm Rick Carlisle, I try to make some adjustments there and keeping the ball in front, try to force more contested threes out of Boston. And offensively, I'm saying to my team, look, we did exactly what we wanted to do, exactly what we needed to do. We even withstood that big punch out of the gate, 12-0 to start.
Right.
We erased that by halftime. It's a tie game. We did so many things well in this game. If we take care of the basketball and we do a better job containing penetration, Indiana's got to feel pretty good overall about a lot of things they did in this game. I guess that is going to be the positive message when they watch this film.
Now, that's what was speculated by Legler, what was going to be said by Carlisle to his team. I believe this was going on at the same time, or they did not have the audio or the accounting of what was said in the news conference. But this was Carlisle talking to the media after the game, and he put it right on himself.
This loss is totally on me. With 10 seconds in regulation, we should have just taken the timeout, advanced the ball, and found a way to get it in and made a free throw or two and ended the game. But it didn't happen. And we made some other mistakes, but our guys just need to concentrate on fighting the way they fought in this game from start to finish, and we'll be back Thursday.
Rick, what to you was the root cause of your turnover issues tonight? 21, I think was the game.
22 for 32 points is what I saw.
22, yes, that was one at the end, sorry.
We made mistakes, and so that's an area we got to clean up. And then, rebounding was pretty even, but we did a lot of good things that we need to continue to do. And we've been a tough-minded, resilient team really for almost the entire second half of the year. And we got to continue with that and come back in here on Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, they did look dead against the Knicks, and they came back. Now, the Knicks were a wounded team. Celtics are not, and the word is they may get Porzingis back for Game 4. So they're not very deep. Look, they were outscored in bench points by the Pacers. The Pacers had 30 points off the bench, and the Celtics only had 13. But the big guns produced. Jason Tatum had 36 points. Brown had 26. They got 28 from Holiday. And here's something else that they have to be concerned about is that Boston really didn't shoot well from three. They're an excellent three-point shooting team. They were only 15 of 45, 33%. So if Boston shoots better from three, that's going to be a problem. The one thing that Boston has not done in these playoffs is win Game 2. So they were actually blown off the floor by a wounded Cleveland team in Game 2 of that series. So for tomorrow night, that might bode well for the Pacers. And I got to like this, too. Therese Halliburton didn't have a great game along with the turnovers. He didn't shoot well. He was 8 of 18 from the field and 6 of 14 from three. And I would like this if I was a coach and looking at the whole team. The coach took the blame. Halliburton said this about the coach.
Tyrese, Rick, in his comments up there, took what he said was full blame for not calling timeout to advance the ball with about 10 seconds left. Were you looking for a timeout in that moment, and just what's your reaction to him?
That's not on him. That's not on him. Us as players, we got to do a better job. I had 2 bad turnovers that I feel like cost us the game, one in fourth and one in overtime. So, I understand he's protecting us, protecting, me as well. But I'll take that more than he should. I got to be better, and I will be better in Game 2, and we'll respond the right way.
That's tomorrow night, Game 2 of the series. We've been doing this throughout the playoffs, so you don't want to say if Boston wins Game 2 and goes up 2-0 that the series is over, but you really don't like the Pacers' chances. And given that they had their chance last night. I mean, they were the team on a roll. They're coming off that big win over the Knicks over the weekend. The Celtics have been sitting around getting stale for like a week. They had their chance. Let's see what happens in Game 2 of the series tomorrow night. Meantime, we got the West starting up tonight, and it is really remarkable what has happened with Kyrie Irving, because when he went to Dallas, when he was signed by the Mavericks, when they made that deal to get him from Brooklyn, and he had to get out of Brooklyn because he was a cancer there. He was a cancer in Brooklyn. He was a cancer in Boston. And you could make the case that he was the worst teammate of all time. It's not the case anymore. You're not hearing anything. And it seems to be going along swimmingly with Luka Doncic as the star of the team. And in a secondary role, a very important role, but a secondary role, Kyrie Irving is acting like a very good teammate. And if you looked in from the outside and you didn't know the history, you would never know all the trouble that Kyrie has caused where he has gone. And Howard Beck covers the NBA for The Ringer. He was on yesterday on the Rich Eisen show, kind of shaking his head at what he's seen from Kyrie over the last 2 years.
At the time that Kyrie forced his way out of Cleveland, I just, like, my jaw dropped. Like, we were already firmly into this era of superstar empowerment and guys moving around more than we'd ever seen before. And I understood it and I support it. But I'd never seen a player decide, I don't want to be with the defining player of my generation who I've gone to 3 finals and won a championship with. I want to be somewhere else. And he ends up in Boston. And it doesn't go well. And it goes pretty badly, in fact, for a couple of years. And then he lands in my backyard in Brooklyn with Kevin Durant. And to all kinds of circumstances that we do not need to relive or relitigate, it does not go well here in Brooklyn either. By the time the Mavericks traded for Kyrie Irving last year, there were very, very few teams in the NBA who really wanted to take a chance on him. And it was viewed as a risk, for sure. All that talent notwithstanding, and everybody acknowledges his talent and everybody admires his talent, but there was a risk because of his personality, because of things that had happened on court and off. And ever since getting to Dallas, Kyrie Irving has been, damn near perfect as a player, as a teammate, as just a general citizen. There has been nothing really to complain about. There have been no red flags. There have been no distractions. And unlike all those years ago when he forced his way out of Cleveland, where it seemed like maybe he wasn't comfortable having to play the co-star role with LeBron, with somebody who was, a bigger, brighter star. He seems comfortable with that now. More than that, like you've seen, even in this postseason run, there's times where it's like he's got 9 or 10 assists and he's not scoring much, or he's got 12 assists and he's only scoring 9 points, or whatever. There was a game like that just a week ago, I think, and that he's comfortable being in more of an opportunistic scorer, not needing to dominate the ball, not worrying about numbers. His ego seems to have, kind of been tamped down over this time. And maybe those are just the lessons you learn after bouncing around for a little bit and realizing that the market the bottom has fallen out for you. And like Kyrie himself prior to his final season in Brooklyn on that media day, I remember him saying specifically that he didn't opt into free agency or pursue that route because he knew that there was really nothing out there for him. So he knew he needed to rehab himself, and he's done a fantastic job.
Is it possible that he finally became mature in his early 30s? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, he went to Duke. He was hurt most of that year. I think he only played like 11 or 12 games. There weren't any real red flags there. He goes into the NBA, and you assume that he's going to have this incredible career in Cleveland, and it's going to stay that way, especially when he reunites with LeBron James, who came back. And then he goes to Boston. That was a disaster. Remember when he cut a commercial with his father about having his number hanging in the rafters in Boston? That didn't happen. He goes to hook up in Brooklyn. And that with Durant, that doesn't work out, and now he's in Dallas and found a home. I did not think this would work. I was stunned to see this actually come out this way. Now they may get eliminated by Minnesota, and maybe there'll be disgruntlement at the end of that series, and he'll find a way to get himself out of there. Though I don't know where he's going to go at this point. But maybe he's made peace with the idea that he can be a very good number two. He I guess when he won with LeBron, he looked around and everybody said, "Oh, look, thank you, LeBron. You came back, you delivered the championship." And he actually made the winning shot. It was LeBron made the block at the end of the game to win Game 7 against Golden State, but it was Kyrie's shot, his basket, that won the game. And I guess he looked and said, "What about me? What about me?" And he was good friends with Durant. Durant was ready to end things with Golden State. Remember, he got hurt in those finals, which they lost. He tore his Achilles and was out for the year. And they figured, okay, we'll hook up in Brooklyn and deliver a championship to the Nets, which never happened. And now he's in Dallas, and sunshine and lollipops. Go figure. Bobby Wagner, now with the Commanders after most of his career in Seattle. He started out with Dan Quinn there and may wind up with Dan Quinn here. They won a Super Bowl together when they were in Seattle. Can they win a Super Bowl here? He thinks it's possible. We'll hear what he has to say about that and more. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
All right, Tony's coming up at 11 today. We got early baseball as well. The suspended Orioles game from last night in St. Louis. They're going to pick it up in the, I guess, 7th inning, tied at 1. Orioles and the Cardinals, and then they will play the scheduled game. They were already scheduled to play this afternoon, so it's just going to be a doubleheader. As soon as they finish that up, there's like a 25-minute delay for get ready for the next game. And sometime late this afternoon or early this evening, we will have the Orioles finishing up their road trip in not the road trip, but finishing up in St. Louis, and then they head to Chicago tomorrow. Not that Tom Brady isn't used to dealing with pressure, but the pressure is ratcheted up just a little bit with what developed last night. They had the Sports Emmy Awards, and the winner of the Outstanding Personality Event Analyst was Greg Olson, who has been kicked to the curb so Tom Brady can collect his $37.5 million to be the number one analyst for Fox. Olson's still got a job. He's having to take, I think, a $7 million pay cut, and he's bumped to the number 2 team on Fox. For now, he says. I guess they're negotiating with the other networks, and maybe there's a possibility, though I don't think there's another place for him in a number 1 job. He's not going to replace Troy Aikman at ESPN, and he's not going to replace Tony Romo at CBS. They're not going to eat that contract. I don't really know where he's going to go. But, here all eyes are going to be on Brady, and he's going to go through some growing pains. I don't think there's any question about it. It's his first year. And Jason Witten stepped into the Monday night booth, getting right off the field from the Cowboys, and was terrible. Absolutely terrible. Lasted 1 year as an analyst, went back to coaching high school football. I don't think that's going to happen to Tom Brady. It's just that he is replacing somebody who's really, really good. Over the period of time where Brady was deciding what he wanted to do, remember he had signed the deal to be the Fox analyst while he was still playing. He was supposed to start last year, And he said, "No, I'll take a year off." Okay, so Olsen did another year as the lame duck, and he was really good. And in the Super Bowl, he was really good. And now he wins an Emmy Award as the top analyst. And here comes Tom Brady with his hefty contract, never having called a game in his life, and he steps into the number one job. So you better be good, because any mistake you're gonna make, Tom, is going to be magnified. It's going to be magnified by this, that you're replacing the Emmy Award winner for Best Sports Analyst, and that's Greg Olsen. All right, Bobby Wagner, now with the Commanders, and this is going to go way back, so it's probably past your memory even if you were alive at the time. But when George Allen came here in 1971, said the future is now, and was a great defensive coach, was a coach with the Chicago Bears when they won the championship in 1963, and then went on to the Rams, where he had really good defensive teams. They just didn't perform well in the postseason, and he was fired by an owner who didn't like him. Came here in 71, said the future's now, and brought with him a lot of his veteran players, particularly defensive players. One of them was Jack Pardee, and Jack Pardee played here for 2 years, and I think was a huge factor in them making the playoffs in 1971 and making the Super Bowl the following year. Those were the only 2 years he played. Then he retired and became a coach, later coached at the University of Houston and the Oilers, and I think he may have coached another team as well. He had a long career as a coach after he finished playing, but coached the Bears. But I look at Bobby Wagner as sort of like him, and Pardee still had a lot left in the tank. Wagner comes here. He's 34 years old. He's been around a long time. He's won a Super Bowl with Seattle. He spent a year with the Rams, went back to Seattle last year, led the league in tackles, and now he's here partly to reunite with Dan Quinn, who was his original defensive coordinator when he came in the league with the Seahawks, and he talked about the reunion when he was on the Up and Adams podcast with Kay Adams.
I think the biggest thing for me is, I've always been on the West Coast, so coming to the East Coast, you want to come and kind of have and be around, some familiar faces. And so, obviously I had a ton of respect from him from afar. We actually tried to make it happen a couple times. It just didn't work out structurally from a contract perspective, but we finally got it right. I think, him as a person, him as a leader has always been amazing. I think a big thing too was being able to be coached by Coach Norton again. He's like my favorite coach of all time. And so being able to be back in the room with him again is great too.
So DQ did try to get you to go to the Cowboys.
This is correct.
Why? And it didn't work out. Why?
It didn't work out. You got to ask the Cowboys there.
And now you get to face the Cowboys twice a year. That's interesting.
Yeah, but I have no feelings there. It's definitely not on the same level of Seattle, for sure.
Oh. Oof. I know. I need you to play Seattle. I need you to go play against Seattle in some situation. You're also reuniting with Ken Norton. I love that, right? Linebackers coach. Mm-hmm. He was your linebacking coach for what? Over 5 years. That's exciting.
Man, he was my linebacking coach for a really long time, and then he was my DC for a really long time. So pretty much over half of my career, I've been coached by him at some capacity. So the guy that I'm really familiar with, I know, and again, I'm excited to be around him.
I'm liking what I'm hearing, but if you're putting a real big challenge on your plate at this point in your career, right? The defense, it's got talent, but dead last ranking across the board last year. I know that's not happening again because you and DQ and Ken will be there. What, in your opinion, is the ceiling for the defense? And I would love to know, does your role change now? I always talk to veteran players, and at some point they're more like the locker room guy, the coach on the field. You've always been that. You were that as a young player, so that's not changing. Yeah. What does your role change now with this Washington team as it is?
I don't think so. I think it's kind of the same thing. I think, at the end of the day, the older you get, the more experience you have, the more people want to, hear from you and want to hear your scars. And I think that's, as a player that's been around for a long time, that's your job, is to share those scars. And so you've been around the game for a long time, so you can understand and kind of be that bridge between the player and coach. There's a lot of great coaches on the staff, but being able to have a guy that can relate the message to the players as well is great. But I think we have a lot of talent and we have a great scheme. And it's really about us being on the same page and bringing that scheme to life. They did a lot of amazing things in Dallas. And, we hope to bring some of that, if not better, here.
Who's a player on that defense that you cannot wait to work with?
Really, honestly, I'm always linebacker. So Luvu is somebody that I worked out with, back when we were in Seattle. We worked out in the offseason. Then he went and played for the Panthers for a long time. And then, we got an opportunity to finally play together. So that's the first person that come to mind, being able to play with him. I've watched him from afar, watched his growth. He's been an amazing player in this league. So I would have to say him.
They're going to learn from you. Jaden Daniels is going to learn from you too, probably the hard way.
He Aido, you know what I mean? I always like to see people from, where I'm from, make it to the league. So I was excited to see his success from afar and then be able to play with him. When we exchanged numbers, we still had the same area code. So I was definitely proud of that.
And what does that mean to you?
It means a lot because when I was coming out of college, the scouts didn't even go in that area. We were a area that nobody even thought about, bringing. So I think it's cool to see how far it's came and, where it's at in development. There's a lot more guys in that area getting looks and a lot more guys in that area getting opportunities to go play in big division, big conferences. And so I think it's still going up.
You wonder if this is going to be maybe a geographic adjustment for Bobby Wagner. I mean, he's a grown man. He's in his mid-30s. I get that. But his attachment to the West Coast is pretty clear there. He's only played there. He played in Seattle and played in Los Angeles. Coming to the East Coast. Yeah, I mean, I guess you eventually adjust. You get over it. But, it just kept coming up there. I just thought that was interesting. But the fact that he is familiar with the scheme, the coach is familiar with him, and also you have younger players who may be able to develop under perhaps the tutelage of Bobby Wagner, which is something he chafes at a little bit. Because remember, this is the guy who led the league in tackles last year. #1 tackler in the league. And what you've heard as part of the free agent haul is, even if he's lost a step or two, the wisdom, the locker room presence that he brings is going to be big. He's kind of chafing at that a little bit. He still wants to be thought of, and he will be a Hall of Fame player, but he wants to be still thought of as playing at a Hall of Fame level. And this is how he explained it to Kay Adams on her podcast, Up and Adams.
Maybe Denzel said it. They want to be the first people to call out your rise, and they want to be the first to call out your fall. So I feel like that's what it is. But I think as a player, you get older, you understand it's just noise, and so you don't listen to it. I know what I bring to a team from a leadership perspective, but I also know what I bring to the table on the field. And we have a lot of guys playing in our league that are in my same class that are doing amazing things like Levante and Demario Davis, and to name a few. And so we just go out there and we show, every year they say I'm this and say I'm that, but then somehow there's a Pro Bowl or All-Pro at the end of the season. So you don't really focus on that. You just figure out how you can get better. You always know there's areas in your game for you to improve. And that's the thing. You just got to constantly improve. The moment you stop learning, stop trying to improve, that's when those opinions become right.
But you do have guys to point to, like Patrick Willis. He left the game at 29. Luke Kuechly comes on my show a lot. He was in your draft class. You have a ring. You have the accolades. One of the best players to ever do it. You're in the Hall of Fame. You could have retired 4 years ago and you're still in the Hall of Fame. So what are you chasing?
I think you chase greatness, to be honest. You watch guys even where I'm at, London Fletcher, you got Ray Lewis, you got all these different guys that, did it at a high level for a really long time. And then too, it's when I came into the league, everybody talked about how hard it was to get to the Super Bowl. And I was lucky enough to get there my second year. And then they said, it'll never happen again. And you get there the third year, and you sit here and you think okay, this is what it's going to be like forever. And then, we haven't been back since. And so a lot of it, too, is wanting to experience that again, wanting to get back to that big game, and then also be a part of something. When I was in Seattle, we were still building something. And so it's special when you build something and you see the work and you see everything come to fruition. So it's kind of the same feel with the Commanders. You're trying to build something. You're trying to, turn this program into a great one, and we have the pieces.
How do you look at Seattle? You brought up Seattle and sort of not like you want to play Seattle. You want, you the way they handled you, Pete Carroll. I can't imagine, even though Pete Carroll said you were too small, he didn't want to recruit you back in the day. But then I'm sure you love him. I'm sure you don't like how do you feel about how they handled all of that? Like, what is your relationship after so much greatness and joy and reaching that highest place with them, but then how it ended? Like, what's your relationship with Seattle?
My relationship with the city is always amazing, like always great. My relationship with the players and the staff and the people that work there is always great. I just think that some of the upper management didn't handle things the right way, and it is what it is. It's part of the business. You always have those things, and I'm sure they'll get worked out over time. I'm not somebody who holds grudges. Or anything like that. So I think that's kind of where it stands.
Well, it sounds like he does have a little chip on his shoulder, which is a good thing. Guy and players thrive on that. And if that can keep him playing at a Hall of Fame level, that'd be great. He'll be on the field today. They have another round of off-season workouts. Dan Quinn is supposed to hold a news conference, I think, at noon today, and they'll probably provide some of the players for the media as well, so we'll get some feedback on that. Also, I forgot to mention this, Wagner said in this conversation that as soon as he signed with the Commanders, he got a call from Magic Johnson. That's a good thing, and I wonder, maybe for bigger fish, not that he's not a big fish, but how much of a role will Magic play as a recruiter as time goes on? He's a basketball guy, and his role with the team is as part of the ownership group, but I think more Magic is good. The way I look at it, the more Magic, the better, and you kind of like to hear that a player got a little pat on the back from one of the all-time greats and somebody who transcends time. Magic Johnson hasn't played in the NBA for almost 30 years. He had his heyday really close to 40 years ago. That championship that he won against Larry Bird in college was 45 years ago. So these guys, even the older guys, Wagner in his mid-30s, has no recollection of that. But he just has that magic. He has the name, the magic, the image, and as an addition to the ownership group, I think that's really a big thing. One other football thing to throw in here, Justin Fields talking to the media after the offseason trade where Chicago sent him to Pittsburgh for a 6th-round pick. I guess this was his first media availability. When teams change coaches, they get more off-season workouts. So I think it's 12 for a team that's got a coach who's returning, obviously, and Mike Tomlin, who's been there forever. And they got more off-season workouts this year here because of Dan Quinn, the new coach. So this, I think, was the first time that Fields talked to the media since he was traded. And he said it's a relief because he knew he was going to be traded once Chicago had the number 1 pick, that was once they were going to take Caleb Williams, and he knew he was gone. And he was very happy with the way Ryan Poles honored the commitment to do the right thing for him. And he wanted to go to the Steelers and said yesterday, shout out to Poles. We communicated to him through my agent. I told him where I wanted to be, and this is the place I wanted to be. He honored that. I appreciate him for that, and I'm glad he was able to put me in a spot I wanted to be. Now, when he got there, he was told, well, Russell Wilson's the starting quarterback. It's basically his job to lose. And he understood that, and he's dealing with that, but said this. Said that he is ready to compete. He says, I'm definitely competing. I think Russ knows that we're competing against each other every day. Him being out there for me, that helps to get me better, especially each other. I definitely don't have the mindset of me just sitting all year. I'm coming in every day, giving it all I've got and pushing him to be the best, and he's pushing me to be the best each and every day. I think that the best thing that can happen for the Steelers is that Justin Fields plays better than Russell Wilson. Not that Wilson is terrible, though I think his career is pretty much shot. I mean, I think that was proven in Denver, where he had everything going for him this past year with Sean Payton there, and he was eventually benched. But if Fields is good enough to essentially beat him out, then Pittsburgh gives Fields a long-term contract. He's only 25 years old, and they move on from Wilson, who, a few years ago, and I've said this a number of times, watching him watch Tom Brady win the Super Bowl was very instructive. He sat by himself in a box in a funk. Like, look at him. He got himself to another team and he won a Super Bowl. I'm stuck here in Seattle and I need to go where I want to go. So he got himself traded to Denver. Turned out to be a disaster. Now he's in Pittsburgh trying to have a year where he resuscitates himself, plays well enough that somebody else is going to sign him, but now in his mid-30s, he's not what he was, and I really don't think – I would not be surprised if this is his last year in the NFL. I mean, he may not think that way, and he may try and prove somewhere else that he can still do it. But there's been a big drop-off in his performance, and Seattle shed no tears when they traded him away. All right, coming up in the next hour, we'll hear from Xander Schaufele as he celebrates his first major championship. Also, Orioles preview, and Cal Ripken with some interesting thoughts on youth sports and what happened to a very young Orioles player, Jackson Holliday, and why it failed. All that as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. All right, we do Orioles preview every Wednesday, and I need to get to the bottom of this. Maybe it's beyond my comprehension, but back in the day, the power hitter hit third or fourth, cleanup. That's leadoff. And Gunnar Henderson is the number one home run hitter in Major League Baseball with 16. He's the leadoff hitter for the Nationals. Kyle Schwarber, big bomber, bats leadoff for the Phillies. So we have the offensive strategy coach for the Orioles, Cody Ashe, coming on at 10:30. And maybe he can enlighten me a little bit on that. Rex Minturn is with me today. I've been saving this story till he got in because he's young enough to remember this. Do you remember your prom proposal from, 6-7 years ago?
Yeah, it wasn't much of one.
Yeah, what'd you do? Just
I think I texted her.
Texted? Oh, you didn't even call?
I honestly don't really remember.
But a text suffices now?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because it used to be, this is why I didn't have the guts to ask anybody, because if you called the house, you're first going to have to go through mom. Oh, who is this? Oh, do you know her from school?
No good.
Yeah, so there was just too many layers to go through, and at the time I just didn't have the confidence to do any of that. But nowadays a text will do. And is there like a time limit on how long she needs to respond? I mean, could she just ghost you?
No, but there's like a time limit for how close to prom you can ask,
Oh, okay. What's the
I don't know.
The window?
I think I cut it pretty close. I think I was like maybe 2 weeks out.
2 weeks. Okay. Well, that doesn't seem unreasonable. Yeah. 2 weeks seems to be okay. Yeah. The whole texting thing, that started when my daughter began dating, and the guy wouldn't even knock on the door. He would text for her to come out. That pissed me off. And then, so, okay, that's different. So here's what happened, if you haven't heard, with Bryce Harper. Have you heard this story?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So Harper lives in a neighborhood where there's a young man by the name of Jake Portella, and he's a senior at Haddonfield High School in New Jersey. I guess this would be a suburb of Philadelphia. And so he asked Harper if he would do the prom proposal. And they knocked on the door of the young lady named Giulia, Giulia, and knocked on the door, and it's Harper, and he says, "Hi, Giulia. Jake wants to ask you to the prom, so I thought I'd help him out and see if you wanted to go to the prom with him. Will you go to the prom?" And Jake is standing right next to her. Who does she hug?
Bryce.
She hugs Harper. Okay, so the guy, he's got to feel a little bit small at that point. Probably a good thought to get Harper, and it would have been really embarrassing for him if she said, "No, Bryce, I don't want to go with him." What if she turned the tables, though? What if she said, "Well, are you off that night? I mean, could you take me?" And because you're the one that's asking here.
Yeah, the school might have something to say about that.
Why? It's just the prom, is it? And
These days.
I guess his wife would have to sign off on that. But here's what he said. Now, I guess he had to come up with the chutzpah to ask Harper, so I'll give him that. He says, I knocked on his door. He seemed cool with it at first. Then he was like, can I get your email so we can plan this out? And as I was leaving, he was like, why don't we just do this right now? I didn't expect Harper to open the door in the first place. So I guess he thought he was going to talk to his wife. I might have gone for the Harper email. Might be good to have that. You never know.
Yeah.
Well,
are they neighbors?
Yeah, that's what it was. They're neighbors. So the prom is June 14th. So if this happened this week, he was within that window, very much so. 3 weeks out, at least 3 weeks out. So I hope they have a good time. I hope this young couple, and if they get married, you got to have Bryce Harper there. As a matter of fact, there seems to be a new way of having weddings officiated. Tony talked about this on the air, that when his daughter got married, it's at least a year ago, Nigel officiated at the wedding. And I have a friend, Chris Johnson, who produces now the Commanders games on the radio and does a lot of other things, worked with him off and on over the years. He had at his wedding Doc Walker officiate. So, I think there's potential here, that especially if they get married in the off season, that Bryce Harper can. But it's a long way. For God's sakes, they're high school seniors, so you never know. Although my daughter's prom date, and they're married now, so there is that. Okay, enough of that. Let's get to this crazy stuff that's happening with the NIL, and you kind of knew that once the Supreme Court said to the NCAA, no, you can't prohibit people from making money off name, image, and likeness, that all hell was going to break loose. And it pretty much has. It's driven Nick Saban out of the profession he was dominating. And we also have other coaches who have gone on the hot seat because of it. Some are still thriving with the NIL, with Kirby Smart, as he's won back-to-back national titles. That happens. But we also have circumstances that have gone haywire. And now there is a former University of Florida recruit named Jaden Rashada who is suing the coach, Billy Napier, and a donor named Hugh Hathcock, who he says promised him $13.5 million, almost $14 million, to go play at Florida. And as you go through all the details of this, it really is it makes your head spin. He's being represented by Rusty Hardin. Rusty Hardin's a big-time lawyer. He represented a number of people, including Roger Clemens. He's a front and center, big-time attorney in Houston, and he's gotten this case. And so now they are suing for the money that was promised and they never received. But as you go through the details of this, I mean, it seems to me like this is Booster trying to go against a rival here. This is the way I read it. This kid, Jaden Rashada, he wasn't the top recruit coming out. This wasn't like, oh, this is a once-in-a-lifetime quarterback. You got to get him. No, he was the number 7 ranked quarterback in the class of 2022 coming out of Pittsburgh, California. And according to the suit, he encountered Hugh Hathcock, the booster, on a recruiting visit to Florida where he was promised that he would make it happen, whatever Rashida needed to come to the school, including a job for his father, who was a former Arizona State football player. Hathcock ran a collective, a booster group facilitating payments for athletes called Gator Guard. He ultimately promised $11 million to commit to Florida, according to the lawsuit. Here's the problem. The kid says he was already committed to play at Miami for $9.5 million, which seems outrageous too. The number 7 quarterback recruit, Miami's going to give him $9.5 million, though Miami has long had a reputation of paying players. Nevin Shapiro went to jail for paying players when it was illegal to pay players. So maybe there's that. But among the agents for Rashada at the time was a kid who was still in college. So there was that. And I think there was, oh, well, if Miami's going to give you that, we're going to give you this. And it never happened. The following month, according to the lawsuit, Hathcock finalized the terms of the offer, including $5.3 million from his company, Velocity Automotive, and more than $8 million from GatorGuard. Hathcock seemingly eluded the ongoing negotiations with Rashada when he tweeted, "Tomorrow will be a great Gator day." But then he balked, according to the lawsuit, never got the money. The kid wound up going to Arizona State. He got $150,000, and that was it. So these kind of things, this might be the tip of the iceberg, and this is why we're going to have players getting paid, and there's now a $2.7 billion settlement, which is being agreed to conference by conference. The Big Ten is already in on this. The ACC is in on this, and they're going to avoid a lawsuit that they were going to lose. So the day of reckoning is coming, but this was sort of inevitable. Meantime, we got this with Clemson, and that Clemson has played for the national championship 4 times. They've won 2, and they are going into this season, allegedly, and so far, they're going in with nobody from the transfer portal. This was Tony and Mike on that yesterday on PTI.
Clemson has added no new players from the transfer portal. They only had 1 last year. 2 years ago, Clemson was 11-3. Last year, they slid to 9-4, their worst record since 2010. Most people expected Dabo Swinney to finally come around and add transfers, but Swinney said, quote, "We like our guys," unquote. Wilbon, how do you feel about Swinney's decision to basically opt out of the portal?
Well, Tony, listen, a lot of coaches have, some famous ones. Famous ones who were famous in the last 5 years, famous ones who were famous before that. You and I know some of them, and they have said to us, privately, if not publicly, I don't want any part of that. They don't. They said, enough. That's a new world. It's a different world. I don't want to deal with that. That is not the world that I grew up in, navigated, won a national championship in or more. And I can respect that. I don't know that it can work. Although maybe it'll be a tempest in a teapot, and after 4 or 5 years, we'll come out on the other side of something that doesn't look all that different than what we had the previous 50. I don't think that's going to happen, but Dabo was very clear about his position. I know there's a split reaction down there, Tony, in South Carolina, to whether or not people think he can do it and can do it successfully. Because the old way he mastered. This way, not so much yet. My feeling is if he doesn't get it right this year, they're going to start talking about buyouts if he doesn't get it right real quickly.
Let me start with this. There are 4 D1 football playing schools in America that added no transfers. Clemson is one of them. The other 3 are Army, Navy, and Air Force. That's not how they operate. So Clemson is the only football school that didn't add any transfers. I'm not going to say anything bad about Dabo Swinney. He's got 2 national championships, been in a final game 4 times. But I think this is a bad decision, Mike. I don't see why you'd be a conscientious objector to this particular thing, which is legal now. You need to think of the transfer portal as a big pond where giant, great football players are swimming. I don't understand the principle not to take them. The new world order is NIL and the transfer portal. Don't tie one hand behind your back, Mike. Don't do
Tony,
it. I don't understand it.
I think once you have 2 national championships, that is your principle. You can say, I did this. I don't have to capitulate to anybody. You think Nick Saban loved the new world and the new horizon that college football was swimming to, even though he's the GOAT? Okay.
He got out.
So if
Dabo Swinney wants to get out,
but
if he wants to get out, get out.
He still got some time
One
left.
of the greatest coaches we ever saw in any sport, Mike, was Dean Smith. One of the greatest ever. When the rules were changed, Dean Smith always adapted to the rules and always won.
Well, we'll see if he continues to win, though. Last year, 9-4 in a conference where you had an undefeated team in Florida State not making the playoff. That's a crappy year. And if he goes 9-4 again, I don't know what the buyout is. The Jimbo Fisher buyout was at $70 million. So maybe he's ready to accept that and coach high school. That may be it. He may be looking at the landscape and saying, this isn't the way I want to coach. So, I'm sure that they'll get pretty restless down there. And in a league where you have to win every game. I mean, you can't lose in the ACC. He lost 4 last year. So it's so far not working. Meantime, Xander Schaufele armed with his big trophy. I think that's the biggest trophy they give out, the Wanamaker Trophy, and he gets a replica of it. It's kind of like the Stanley Cup. The original sits with the name of each winner engraved in it, and he gets a replica of it. But he was making the rounds yesterday, and Schaufele was on the Dan Patrick Show and was asked about now being able to shed that label of the best golfer never to win a major.
I mean, that's sort of the conversation I would have in the mirror with myself, to be completely honest. So I was saying that before everyone else was. So, well, it was unfortunate the media picked up on what I was thinking.
But what was your answer if you're talking to yourself in the mirror?
Just to hang tough, you got to be resilient at times, stubborn at times, and I have those traits ingrained in me, and I definitely put them to use to weather the storm of not really winning a whole lot in the last couple of years.
How did the nerves rank? How nervous were you?
That last putt, I was nervous. I'm not going to lie. I was, but I was surprisingly more calm than I thought. I think I kept saying, knock on the door till you knock it down. And I had so many close calls. And I think all those moments sort of hardened me for that final moment to sort of walk up 18 and be cool and calm in that moment. So all those close calls definitely paid off, and I was able to put them to use, which was nice.
So that's Schaufele.
You put a little pace on that putt, though.
I told myself at the beginning of the day that just get the ball to the hole. On a lot of my Sundays, when I look back at some film, I've hit a lot of good shots. I've executed a lot of good shots, a lot of hesitation in just getting it done. And so the greens were a little bit slower because of the rain. And it was something I consciously told myself is to be aggressive. It's going to take a low score because people are shooting nothing. And it was an interesting major Sunday, just in the fact that I had to shoot 700 or 600 to win. But being aggressive was something I told myself when I woke up. It's something I need to do.
Yeah, 21 under par. Patrick asked him about that. He said, how do you feel about that? And he patted the trophy, which is the way to go. More on finally winning a major and where he stands now. And also a couple of interesting nuggets that I was not aware of, like how these guys get paid. This is more with Dan Patrick and Xander Schaufele.
You imagine that's your first, that Jack did that 18 times and Tiger did it 15 times.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy, isn't it? With everything you've gone through, as good as you are, and you got one, and then all of a sudden Tiger can walk by and go, you got 14 to go.
Yeah, no, it makes you feel pretty small pretty quickly when you compare yourself to the best that have ever played the game. No doubt about it.
He's Xander Schaufele. I know you don't get too emotional, but I think your dad gets emotional, but he wasn't there. And then I think you talked about it in the press conference that you called him right before you're going to go get the trophy. I was wondering, how that was going to affect you as you're going out there. You didn't want to be crying for posterity. History's going to show you, just big tears out there. What was the phone call like to Dad?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a grown man. I'm not afraid to show some tears when it's right. You know what I mean? It's all good. But I was actually, when Austin came and gave me a big hug, I mean, I think both of us were more emotional than we thought we would be. I think it was just this big buildup for us. And we've kept our head in the sand and just kept our head down for so long that everything just kind of came out. And it was like, holy smokes, like I am way more emotional than I thought I was ever going to be. And so when I called my dad, I mean, I would have bet the farm that he was going to be crying. And so, but as soon as I heard his voice and, I started talking to him, I was immediately like, I got to hang up. I can't continue this phone call for more than a minute or I'm going to start crying here on the phone. So it was, and then I called my mom like half an hour later and then she started crying again. And I was like, holy smokes, I'm about to go on TV again. So it's like, I need to talk to you guys in a little bit.
He's the winner of the PGA Championship, Xander Schaufele, back on the program. When you win, is it direct deposit for the check?
Typically, yeah. Yeah, on a Tuesday. Tuesday, it usually
so today you're getting the check.
Today, yeah. On the PGA Tour, that's normally how it happens. With major championships, it's different. It's different how they go about it.
Do you check your ATM? Like, how does this work?
I have not checked my bank account. I have not, to be completely honest.
Are you? Do you retire the outfit that you wore on Sunday?
I pushed. I watched some highlights. I really wanted to win in that outfit. I wore it on Sunday at Riv, didn't win. I wore it, I think, at the Players, didn't win. And so, everyone's kind of got their thing. I mean, it's just one of my favorite shirts that I wear from Descent right now, and it's comfortable, and I liked it. And, it's got a little bit of color compared to everything else I'm wearing right now. So
yeah, but what are you going to do? Like, you're going to put that on a mannequin and not wear it anymore?
I'm sure my mom will want to. My parents usually are like the safekeepers of my trophies. I'm actually shocked this one's here with me right now. It's only because I'm in Florida.
Does the top open on that trophy?
Well, how are you going to drink out of it, my man?
What's been in there in the past 48 hours?
Probably like 3 or 4 different kinds of alcohol and too many lips.
Who got to sip out of it?
Oh, my team.
Oh, so no other golfers?
No. I was able to. I had a few friends there that caddy for other players, and I was like, you guys aren't drinking out of this. I was like, you guys can drink out of something like this when your player wins a tournament. Like, I'm not going to hold this over your guys' heads. So everyone on my team and my family, they drank out of it.
Well, that's like the Stanley Cup. It's been a lot of different places and seen a lot of different things, but this is it. It was like one spin here with 48 hours where everybody got a chance to see it and then goes back home.
Once it goes to the West Coast, I'm kind of an old soul now. In order to be good at golf, it's hard to go out and party and rage too hard. So my parents, though, they're probably going to parade around town with this thing, and I'm sure they're going to use this thing way more than I did. I can promise you that.
Yeah, I'd be like Lefty Drizel. I'd tie it to the hood of my car and drive around with the Wanamaker trophy. The money part of sports is just absolutely amazing. When they're talking about direct deposit of a $3 million check. That was the winning share, $3 million. And I was just saying to Rex here while I was playing that Jack Nicklaus's top prize he made millions and millions designing golf courses and endorsements and all that, but his top prize money was, I think, when he won the Masters in '86, is $300,000. And now they don't even, the money doesn't mean anything at all. And the live money and casual fans like me, I don't care who's making what on the live tour anymore. That doesn't interest me whatsoever. And the only golf I watch is majors. So it was fine with that. But you just look at the way money has changed. And I've told these stories many times, but Jerry Eisenberg, who's now in his 90s, still writing sports, was talking about the Green Bay Packers back in the day. And Lombardi would often threaten to trade a player, and a player would get scared. Not because he loved playing for the Packers and Lombardi so much. It's that if they won the championship that year, he was going to make $6,000, which in some cases would be like 50% of his salary. And so they were scared that money wasn't going to be there, and sometimes their wives had already spent some of it. So that used to scare him. And then if you've watched the highlight tape of the Redskins Super Bowl with Joe Theismann, he's saying before the game, this game is worth $70,000 and a big effing ring. And the $70,000 meant something then. The ring is what means something now. The money actually is not that much more. But in golf, the money has gone up exponentially for winning championships because of the Tiger Woods effect and because of, the times and everything else. But, man, I mean, you just like, let me go online and check my account. Oh, good, the $3 million went in. I can buy groceries. It's just absolutely amazing. Anyway, we got Orioles preview coming up next. Cody Ashe, offensive strategy coach, will join us. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.